Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. I would now like to introduce your speakers for today, Tom Norman, Digital Learning Manager, Talent COE Europe at PepsiCo, and Dan Mullen, CEO and founder of Lucy. Dan, you have the floor.
Thank you so very much. I feel like, very administered in this process, and we're having a casual conversation. So let me just give you a quick background. Again, I'm Dan Mallon, the CEO and one of the founders of Lucy, and we're here to kind of share just a little bit about knowledge management, but how it applies in the enterprise to HR and digital learning, and some of the thoughts that PepsiCo has put behind that. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and a few years ago was looking at kind of what we're going to do next with my partners, and we're discovering this new world of knowledge management, artificial intelligence enablement, and really kind of focusing on, hey, we know corporations have just piles and reams and tons of content, and they create, I joke, but how many PowerPoints are created every day inside of PepsiCo? And it's probably, measured in thousands or tens of thousands of PowerPoints a day. And we spend so much time taking data from various places, creating knowledge, and it's usually stored in the form of a PowerPoint or a PDF, an audio file, a video file. And so what we've done is created kind of an answer engine for all of those kinds of resources inside of the organization. And we store them on Teams and SharePoint and Box and Dropbox and other places. And so Lucy reads, watches, and listens to all of that content and allows you to find answers from inside of that. So we don't use the word search engine. Lucy's an answer engine, and so you can ask her a natural language question, and she brings back, that answer. How do I, where, and again, with opportunity of those kinds of things. What's also really cool as we step into this is we're enabling that inside of chat or other places. So if you're using Teams or Slack, where you can actually ask those same questions in Teams or Slack and get an answer. So, because one of the things is people they actually ask each other more questions than they do trying to find it in the repositories that are provided. And so I just want to give that brief overview of, hey, this is what Lucy is, and how what we're talking about is how does this apply to the great areas of HR, knowledge management, learning, talent management, and again, each use case or each, and actually even inside PepsiCo, we have 5, 6, 7 use cases at different teams, different places, and so this is an example of one great piece, and Lucy's different for each company, but also Lucy's different for each employee. So Lucy sees what you are allowed to see inside the company, and then provides the answers from kind of that stack of knowledge. So without further ado, I want to bring Tom in here. I assume that you can see him. He can kick off his audio and kind of share a little bit of what he and his team were looking for. Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks, and thanks for inviting me along, guys. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to this many people in the HR world. So really appreciate that. So a bit of background from me. My interest at PepsiCo is around digital learner experience. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it easier for our learners to access more relevant and timely learning content, and that way the hope is that will supercharge their growth. So we're always looking for ways to make things easier for people. And PepsiCo, I guess, like a lot of the people sitting and watching will be in a highly matrixed organization, and PepsiCo is no different. We have global teams, we have sector teams, we have divisional teams, we have business unit teams, and the same is true in HR. And there are many, many advantages to that setup. But one of the maybe drawbacks is you get knowledge silos, and these form sort of accidentally. You don't mean to create these, but you set something up for a group of users, and you maybe put that on a SharePoint side and you roll it out, and you maybe don't think that actually this could be more useful for a wider audience, and then maybe use it one time, and then you forget about it. And these are great resources, and what you get is this sort of lack of visibility. So specifically in HR, actually I say specifically in HR, I don't suppose it is, but you get duplication of effort. If there's no sort of formalized process to check for existing resources, you get different groups of people all building the same thing at the same time. So take an example there. We've just had the pandemic. Everyone can relate to that. You suddenly had a lot of teams with a big need for things like crisis management and reprioritization, and lots of different teams going off and making exactly the same thing at the same time because they needed it right now. And well, another example, which is it's perhaps related to an annual cycle, we've got maybe performance management training. That's the same pretty much every year. There's tweaks to it, but it works the same globally. Maybe you've got a global performance management process. You don't need to have 5 versions of how to do it, one for each sector or one for each business unit. You could just have one. But that's difficult. It's difficult to coordinate. So these are some of the problems that we were trying to solve. And when we dug a little bit deeper, we found even surfacing resources, even if you know they exist, is a challenge. Because what you tend to get is lots of different knowledge stores. So we've got, maybe 10 different SharePoint sites, and we've got somebody else using another sort of knowledge store, like Dropbox or something. You get the idea. And some people have access to some, and they've all got their own folder structure, and it's difficult. So you need to really know, either you need to know where to look, or you need to know who to ask. And what that breeds, our hypothesis was that bred lengthy email chains. You'd email somebody who might know, and that would take days. Maybe they're off, or they're on vacation or something, and they take a couple of days to get back to you. And it's really it's a waste of time waiting for things that you've got the energy to do now. And so it just highlights for us, when we thought this through, we highlighted that the easiest thing to do is just build your own resource and not look if anything already exists. And that creates more duplication. It creates the loss of the group input. And things are just better when you collaborate, right? When you've got a few minds working on the same piece of work, things are better. And then, of course, people leave as well. So you've got somebody that you always ask, where's that file? Where's that resource? Well, suddenly they've left, and those resources still exist. They're still PepsiCo intellectual property, but now they're a lot harder to find. So the more we dug into it, the more we saw barriers to sharing these knowledge resources, breaking down these knowledge silos. And it's been something that it's not a new problem. It's nowhere near new. People have tried to, and I expect in your companies you'll have maybe done the same thing. You'll have built a central SharePoint or a central repository. But the issue with that, I think, is that you need people to change their behavior. You need them to remember to save the resources somewhere differently. You need to tag them. You need to figure out the folder structure that everyone understands. So we were looking for something that would help us surface and reuse all these great resources that we have, but really have the minimum behavior change required. So we don't want people to relearn new systems and remember to save their stuff in different places, because actually probably wouldn't work. And so I I like to talk to a lot of people throughout PepsiCo, and we discovered Lucy through our insights and our commercial team. They were already had an instance, and we had a look, and we thought maybe this might work for HR, so we set up a pilot.
Tom, it's interesting. You mentioned people leaving the organization. One of the things that we also always don't remember is we actually promote people, which effectively is them leaving the organization. So, it's not even all negatives, it's positives. We promoted somebody, we brought somebody new in from a different area. And again, everything that was created, it's like when you leave your department, everything that was ever there, the only memory of that is those files left on SharePoint. After a year, all we know is, well, there's some files that were created by that person. So, we it's not just somebody went somewhere else. It's we promoted them, even inside the department, and we still find ourselves losing that knowledge.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It happens a huge amount in PepsiCo. There's, it's a great place for growth. So that is another issue.
Awesome. Let me give you your I know you guys did some survey work, so why don't you share a little bit about what you learned through that process?
Yeah, so I used to, many years ago, I used to be a science teacher. I have a science degree, so I love a good experiment. I love a good before and after. Let's measure, see what's changed, find out if our hypothesis, all the stuff that I've just explained to you, Dan, was true. So yeah, we went out to our European HR colleagues, and we wanted to know a bit more about how people were currently looking for existing knowledge with HR. It was so interesting. Because on the surface of it, the first question they came back, and just over half the employees who responded, and we got a good response rate, but they said they were fairly confident that they could find what they needed if they knew it already existed. So you're thinking from that first question, okay, case shut. We don't need any help. Everyone can find what they need. But there are useful resources that they don't know exist. And what we found, again, when we dug a little bit deeper, is that we're a highly relationship-based team. It's not surprising. If you work in HR, you're going to like people. So we build really, really strong relationships. So we were asking, okay, if you look for some knowledge, how would you do it? And nearly 80% of people said that they would call or email or instant message a colleague as the first thing that they would do. And then similar numbers said that they wouldn't think to check sites like Yammer. And less than 30% said that they would look on SharePoint as a first point of call. And we've got just tons of information on SharePoint. And then so we looked at how long is it actually taking you to find the information. And what we found were people were doing exactly as I said. They were emailing off and waiting for answers to come back. And big, long email chains were forming. And 87% of the people we asked said that it was taking them hours or days to find the information they needed, which is a lot. And 50% said that they only sometimes or don't usually find existing work to help them start to help them start on new work and leverage some work that's already been done. I put up this graphic. This is a snapshot from the survey there. So addition in it taking days for these email chains to come back and you get the answer to you need, it seemed like people weren't just sending off a quick email and going, okay, done, I'll wait for the response, I'll do something else, because people said that they were spending hours looking for existing resources. Most people are spending hours. So then it got me to think, well, why aren't we just asking the other sectors, the other departments? And people were saying that they generally didn't, because PepsiCo is a huge organization. Your network has to be pretty top notch to be able to find and know all the people in HR all over the world. So people were saying, I just don't know who to ask. I would, but I don't know. And then the final question I was interested in, I said, look, if we have better knowledge management systems, how often are you being interrupted because people are looking for things that you've already sent them? or you've already told them where it's saved. And it came back that most people were being interrupted by their colleagues several times a week with questions that could have been prevented with better knowledge management. Now that you put all that together, and that's a lot of time people are spending looking for things. And it converts to
it's very interesting, of course, because you're saying not only are people spending time looking for things, they're spending time helping others look for things, and so the chaos becomes itself. We have done some things talking to those subject matter experts, the people that are asked, and subject matter experts love to, it's a little bit of the science teacher in you. They love to solve problems. They love to find answers. They just don't love finding the same answer again and again.
Yeah.
And so we need to free those people up to solve the real problems in a company, not answer the repetitive, questions of where do I find that, which I might ask once a quarter because that's when it comes up.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got to be clear. We're not, I'm a big believer in collaboration. We need people working together on great things, and we want to encourage that. And we want people to build their networks because your work only gets better if you do that. But the stuff that's just interruptions, we could do without that. And it's not, it's not anyone's fault. It's not somebody being annoying or they're doing the wrong thing. It's just we haven't. The technology hadn't advanced, so there wasn't a better solution to it. So that was the only thing we got. So that's how it worked.
So, and I want to restate something else that you said earlier here, because people are spending 25% of their time looking for stuff, and then like up to 50% of the time not finding it. I mean, just as you start cascading the math, just the opportunity.
Yeah.
And again, the real goal is to do things better and faster, make a better decision faster. Not recreate the work of that somebody did last week, last quarter, last year in a different area, or even in my own area. And I just think there's so much power in the capability of knowing. And it's not that nothing has to be redone, but if it might be I found this presentation I have to give, or I get to give, and I just need to update 2 of the 12 slides because they're not relevant, and that's the kind of time savings. So I can find it in minutes, and then I don't have to recreate it, and I just modify it and make it fit. So such great opportunities for people. I'm going to tee up your next kind of thought process here, which is Ada. Tell me how we got to Ada and what's your vision for her in HR. And again, Ada is what PepsiCo calls Lucy inside their organization. So share a little bit there.
Yeah, so we wanted to really own our own instance of Lucy, and we saw Lucy as the technology provider, and we wanted to take, because it's going to be different for every company because the data inside it's different. So we wanted to take it, make it our own, own it, love it, build a recognizable brand. And so we changed the name. We changed it from Lucy to Ada, and we worked with some really good marketing teams to build a brand around it. Now, Ada is named after Ada Lovelace, the famous mathematician, and some say the start of computers. She brought that idea in. So yeah, we wanted it to be our tool. We wanted it to be PepsiCo's tool. So jumping back to what we're doing in HR at the moment, because it's actually up and running and it's embedded in other departments, but in HR we're still running a pilot, and we're about 2.5 months into our 3-month pilot, so there's no conclusive results yet, but it is very clear that it's been very useful. So stats like just under half of our European HR colleagues have logged in and have asked a question, and they've asked just shy of 300 questions in that time, and those are pretty good stats for a brand new tool. And then we get various reports of Ada saving our colleagues' time. So you get asked the question, how much time did you save today? And you can choose an option, and it emails you through so you can report all of that. So where we really want to go is after this Europe. So at the moment we've joined up, I think it's nearly 30 SharePoint sites in HR just in Europe. But really what we want to do, where you get the biggest value, is then when you go to the global teams. And it's not just Europe, but it's global. And then you can go to the teams in North America, and you can attach their knowledge repositories, or the teams in EMESA or APAC or wherever it is. So you get examples there. Well, what we're hoping is, let's go back to a crisis management example. So say you're an L&D manager in North America, and you identify a learning need for a group of your execs on the subject of crisis management. You don't know if you've got anything on crisis management. So what we're hoping is that they would go and use Ada, and maybe they would find details of something that Europe have done. So we've got a program called Save the Titanic. It's a really good simulation. So Ada would then tell the person who's looking, the person searching in North America, who's the contact, because it shows you who uploaded the document. So they can get in touch. They can leverage Europe's simulation. They could maybe just lift and shift it, and suddenly they haven't reinvented the wheel again. And they've got a quick, agile solution to source those exec groups' learning needs. Or, that's an L&D thing. I sit in L&D, so let's expand it a bit more. So maybe you sit in talent acquisition. Maybe somebody sat in talent acquisition in EMESA, and they have been asked to design a campus program for the UAE, maybe. So they go on Ada, exactly the same process. They ask, have we got anything on campus programs? And they find something that's been developed by LATAM. So instead of starting from scratch, they have a look, they see what LATAM have done, and then they might have a chat with the guys in LATAM, get their learnings from it, and then they've got a template, and they adapt it for their local needs. And then the last thought that we're having is, we started off this pilot just for HR. That was the ambition. We were going to have an Ada instance just for HR. But maybe, I don't know if we could expand that more and link up with our commercial teams, our insights teams, and make all that great information available to us in seconds as well. Because then what you might see happening, hopefully anyway, is HR suddenly becomes even more relevant to the business's bottom line. So you can search, you've got access to all these amazing insights that HR can really add value to, and that can really benefit the business further. So I think that's our plan.
Yeah, and as you say that, and just for perspective, obviously you're in this pilot mode with 30 SharePoints and some scale of users, but across PepsiCo there's already 1,000 SharePoints or sources loaded into other forms or other places of where Ada exists. And so, we create these silos of our functional areas, HR and, the commercial and insights areas and all these. But the more we actually share, the better the understanding, the better the capabilities, the better I can answer the questions of the day that comes into me. And so it really is a huge opportunity to leverage it, not just in the area, but across areas. And the other piece is, of course, these various areas have HR needs too, right? They have people, they're managing people, they're managing staff. So having that universal tool and access also becomes, kind of part of what we're offering there.
Absolutely, yeah, because you could, the commercial and insights team could potentially be thinking, what's the policy for somebody in Spain who needs to do this? And, if you've got HR linked up in there, they can find that without having to trawl through, find the right place, find the right HR business partner, or they can almost self-serve. And then, of course, check it with HR so they've got it right before they...
But the other piece is published content has authors. And so if you're publishing content, you can talk about finding the expert. If I have that question, or I say, I find that the Titanic simulation or conversation, and I go, wait, Tom created that. I can call Tom. I could, email, chat, whatever, and reach out. So it enables the network and good people knowing what they're supposed to do. But again, I don't need all the answers. I just need the specifics. So pretty powerful. Mm-hmm. All right. So are there any challenges that are facing PepsiCo in this current?
Yeah,
it's almost
I'm smiling. We're living through. Yeah, any challenges out there? I think we're living through unprecedented times, aren't we? And in Europe's feeling it as well. PepsiCo is facing significant challenges, just like every other company out there. In Europe specifically, there's the war in Ukraine. We've got significant operations in Ukraine and Russia, but also Romania, Poland, Germany, who are significantly impacted by, the arrival of refugees. There's the cost of living crisis. So the cost of everything is going up, and there's challenges around supply chain, just as there is with every other company out there that we're overcoming. There's the post-pandemic world. So our approach to tackle subjects like hybrid working, for example, coming up with new and creative ways to do that. And then there's the, I picked the war, I picked the cost of living crisis, I picked the post-pandemic world. Okay, they're a bit. There's things that we want to do just to make.
There's one more today we should talk about, which is global warming.
Well, yes, I'm currently sat in 88 degrees in this heavily insulated house with no air conditioning. So. In the UK's hottest ever day. But yes, bringing it to global warming, there's the sustainability agenda. PepsiCo are investing huge sums in a program, and if you're interested in this, you can go onto our website and have a look. It's called PepsiCo Positive. It's our sustainability agenda. We're looking at reducing the amount of water we use, investing in positive agricultural practices, and finding ways to reuse packaging, making circular economies with things like that. And then, of course, there's the health of the global population. So we're looking at ways to reduce the levels of sugar and salt in our products and make our snacks and our drinks more healthy. And all the above, all of that means that sharing and finding knowledge is more important than ever before. Now, PepsiCo, I got to tell you, Dan, PepsiCo is absolutely stuffed full of really, really smart people. And what we want them to be focused on is the next innovation. It's exactly what you said earlier. It's the next innovation, the next item on the sustainability agenda, the next step towards healthier, tastier sips and bites of PepsiCo products. So we don't want them spending hours on finding the information that they think might exist or spending hours creating a piece of work that already exists. It's just a waste of time. So we're hoping that Ada continues to prove helpful in making PepsiCo faster. You mentioned faster, better. That's the PepsiCo values here: faster, better, stronger. So we want to make PepsiCo faster, more innovative, more agile organization.
It's funny. That's such a dream for everybody. Right?
Yeah.
I need the information at my fingertips. I want to be able to make a decision. I've been in organizations where somebody comes to me and says, "I need this information," and I kind of look up and I go, "I don't have it. I could get it." I go work a couple weeks figuring it out, bring back the information, and their response is, "We already had to make that call." They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait for the data. They had to make a call today. And here they're putting it on somebody to go find that information. And if you don't have it, you don't have it in a timely manner. You have to, decide in some other fashion, which is often with your gut or that limited set of information.
And so, I think that the differentiator here with Lucy is that it looks inside documents, it watches videos, it listens to audio files. So you're not just searching and as long as the title matches, you might get a match. It's actually, it'll show you page 52 of your 200-page document because that's where your answer is. So that's and before the last few years, that technology just hasn't been available. You needed that AI to find it that quickly.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there is a question in the chat which is about, does it only bring, does the chat bot only bring up documents? And so, I want to kind of just first of all say it's not a chat bot, it's just sometimes enabled through chat. Lucy's much more visual and auditory, and so if the answer is in a video, Lucy cues up the video at minute 68, and you get to listen to the answer. If the answer's in that PowerPoint deck, Lucy brings up slide 42, not these are the 10 decks you have to look for. And that's the difference between kind of a search engine finding documents and that answer engine. But again, it's about empowering the speed of gaining that information and what you can do with that. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that you've had, or steps and challenges along the way to in how you're implementing and where you're going with this.
Yeah. Well, when you implement a new tool or a new platform, there's always going to be. It's never going to go 100% smoothly. You can't just send out an email and go, boom, done. So you've got to drive the usage. And actually, we talked. I mentioned earlier we were trying to minimize the amount of behavior change, but there is some. You've got to remember to go into Ada as a first point of call. And people's natural reactions, as we saw from the survey, is, I'll just call someone, I'll email someone. So we've been trying to, when you get requests like that, the team that are working on Ada are like, go back, even if you know the answer, just go back and say, sort of, have you looked in Ada? Because, that starts it off. But I'd say to get over that, communications is really key. So we've tried to really drum it in, mainly through email, because we've got, a relatively small user base for this pilot. So we've gone out normally once every 2 weeks, but then we've had automated messages that have gone out to say, hey, you've been using Ada a lot, thank you, this is how you can make Ada better, or, we miss you because you logged in and then you haven't been back, or, so that we automated messages like that. But the main comms that we've been sending out are things like 5 great questions to ask Ada. Do you know what Ada does? Because you're not, you send out the launch mail and not everyone will read it, or they'll read it and they'll forget because something else comes up, something urgent comes up. And then we've been sending out more provocative messages as well, like you've missed something, you can see the one on the screen there, or stop wasting time. Okay, so just to try and get attention, just try and cut our way through that sea of emails. And then within the emails, so that's just the headlines, but within the emails, we're trying to tune into what's going on into the business. So the one that you can see here was sent out a few weeks ago. We're talking about mid-year conversations at the middle of the year. So why don't we give our HR guys the decks that we made or that other people have made so that they can pass that on to a manager? An HRBP is approached by a manager and says, hey, I'm new to this. I'm a first-time manager. I don't really know what's going on. And the HRBP can go to Ada and go, is there a deck for the mid-year conversations, or are there any tips for the mid-year conversations? And Ada goes, yeah, here we go. And hands it over. And to further support that, actually, we did some persona work right at the start before we launched it. We talked to our colleagues who were HR business partners or worked in talent acquisition or employee engagement, or and we said to them, what are the challenges that you've faced, or what around knowledge management? What would you like us to solve? So we got a lot of really good data that then we could put in the comms, if it's applicable, if Ada can help with that, and say, hey, you're having this problem, Ada can help. Do you want to have a look? So that's there. And I guess the second big challenge is getting people to ask full questions. So they're not used to it. They go into Google and you just type in keywords. But the problem is you've got to treat Ada like she's a colleague. So Dan, if I came up to you and just said, hey Dan, leadership, right? You wouldn't know what I mean, right? So you've got to, you look through the questions that have been asked, and there's lots of people asking keywords, and Ada's not bringing back the best results because she doesn't know what they mean. She's trying, but she doesn't know that they want, strategies for, or a strategy setting for C-suite executives. She's bringing back, something for another set of leaders. I don't know. So that's a challenge. So that's just an educational bit, again, through communication. And I guess there's one thing that hasn't been a challenge, actually, is buy-in. Once you get somebody in a room and you tell them what Ada does, they all go, wow, okay, that's really good. And they see the value in the tool straight away. But then I've got this term I've coined. I'm taking credit for it, even if you've heard it before, which you probably have. But choice paralysis, right? Choice paralysis, I call it. So when you go onto Netflix or Amazon Prime, other streaming services are available, of course. You usually go on there to watch something that you've been told about. So a friend's recommended something to you. Hey, you go, because if you go into Netflix and you go, okay, let's watch a movie, let's watch a series, and you haven't a clue what you're going to watch, you sit there for 2 hours just scrolling through, and then you go, Netflix hasn't got anything on it, which is, it could be the same if you haven't got Netflix. It could be the same if you go into a library. I'm going to go get a book from a library. You get overwhelmed by the amount of choice. So you need to help people by giving people examples of what questions they can ask, and try and get into their mind about, okay, I'm going to try and predict what you might find useful, and show you that you can ask Ada a question about that. So that can be a bit of a challenge, and Ada runs on AI as well. So Ada's heavily so she's very good, but as with every other artificial intelligence platform, she won't get everything right every single time straight away, right? So you've got to manage expectations. So you can go out and you can say Ada's wonderful and it just does it straight away, but then the first time somebody puts in an acronym that is unique to PepsiCo, they don't get the results that they wanted because Ada doesn't know the PepsiCo acronyms. So you have to help Ada and almost onboard her. You'll notice that I've been referring to her as she and her, and it's because we treat her like a new colleague, a really super smart colleague who we need to onboard, and we need to teach her about PepsiCo. And the more we teach her, the smarter she'll get, and the more helpful she'll be. But there's that expectation management piece, because you don't want somebody to go on straight away and ask a keyword question, not get the answer that they want, and go, no, this isn't what you told me it was.
So much of what you just said, we all roll out products as part of our daily job. I mean, PepsiCo creates products and then rolls them out. And the way you roll out products are understanding the users, creating a communications plan, and then creating, marketing for that. Yet our tendency when we roll out systems is, here it is. And here it is isn't the right answer. We have to take that step back and do the same thought process, which is, all right, who are those users? What are those personas? What do they want? How do we communicate what those capabilities and possibilities are? And then, branded communications, if you look at what's on the screen here, Ada, this wasn't just slapped up there in an email template. It's put out with the thought of an agency and a product, as opposed to just, here it is, go use it. And here it is, go use it is just a definition of us, driving not towards success, but the opposite, choosing the opposite direction.
And I guess there's also the point that inevitably that step back is important for another reason as well, because you get so involved and you know so much about it that there is a danger that you make assumptions that people know as much as you do. And so you have to reset and say, okay, I often think, okay, how would I explain this to my grandmother? That's what I go back to. Right? So you have to come right back and go, right, all this stuff that I know about Ada now, Nobody knows any of it. So what's the very basics? What did I learn 6-8 months ago when I first discovered this existed?
Very much so. And the full question concept also, which is a bit of training. And what people don't realize is you ask a question, and Lucy then will ask, or Ada will ask you, did you find what you're looking for? And if not, you can describe what you were looking for. And the percentage of circular conversations here, which is I enter something like energy drinks. And how much content do you think in PepsiCo exists on energy drinks? And then they say, did you find what you're looking for? And they say no. And they say, what were you looking for? And I'm interested in energy drinks for millennials in France.
Yeah.
That's the description of what they were looking for. Well, if you just ask that question, you'll get the content you're looking for. And so it becomes part of that training and feedback loop. Let's just, hey, that looks like a pretty good question. Why don't we ask that? And boom, and we can take them through the process of saying, hey, the more words descriptive, and it's, again, as you said, the same way you would ask me is how you should ask Ada or ask Lucy in those lights. I do like the choice paralysis statement. My wife, the first time, we're married, she's got a credit card, and she goes into a candy store for the first time with her own credit card, and she couldn't find anything. She couldn't, because there was just too many options. So it's pretty much a kid in the candy store scenario with an unlimited budget. So again, tell us those tips and key learnings as you're taking it from, again, this European pilot, and where you anticipate that kind of the global view of Ada for HR.
Yeah, I think the first thing to accept, and I have a tough time with this, that the way knowledge is stored now is unstructured, especially with the younger generations. Okay, because the search functionalities are getting so good, you don't need to. And I'm one of these people who has a really a folder structure that I share that I'm proud of, and it's mine, and I know where everything is in it. And there's hundreds of folders, and I can get to what I need just like that. But if I gave that to you, Dan, you would be lost. Okay, and say knowledge, the way we store knowledge now, and the amount of knowledge out there now is just unstructured. It's got to be saved in an unstructured manner. So that letting go of this idea of formal hierarchies and folders is something that needs to happen. Because when it's more than one person, so I've got my folder structure, when you're doing it for more than one person, creating and remembering that folder structure is hard, and search makes that unnecessary. So yeah, the tips there, it is a low behavior change, but there is still some. I think knowing that it's not a silver bullet. You can't just switch it on and everything's perfect again. So communication and training is long term. You can't just send out a launch email and expect it to happen. And then finally, I think there is a bit of work up front as well. You've got to think about where your data is and who you can share it with. Now, Lucy has built great permissions. There's roles and security features into. I think we've got a question in the Q&A about security, actually.
Yeah, there is one.
So you do need to do a bit of work up front to ensure that you're not giving Ada access to information that you don't want shared. Like, I don't want to be able to go into Lucy and say, okay, what's the CHRO's salary and where do they live, right? So, which is unique to HR. So there are things like, if you've got files that are password protected, Lucy can't see them. Ada can't see them. If you've got, you can exclude certain file types. So, for example, we excluded Excels because that's usually where the personal data lives. It's in an Excel somewhere. So we've switched on a feature that says, right across the board, no Excels from any of the SharePoints. And, you can get quite granular as well. So I can say, okay, Dan, you're working in talent acquisition, and I'm not, so you can see stuff that I can't through Ada. If you've got really secret or confidential, I should say, folders, that you just can't share. But it doesn't stop you putting them in Ada. It just means that you have to be cognizant of who you're going to share them with. So there is a bit of work up front.
Yeah, and the question was, how do you manage confidentiality and security around what groups can see what documents? And the short answer is we leverage whatever's facilitated in the platform. So if you're using SharePoint, if somebody has access to those files in SharePoint, they would have access to them in Lucy. But Lucy knows or takes those privileges and transfers them. So my answer set is only from the documents that I have available. The same with third-party license data or other places. So that part is really cool and as you said, really important, because there's a total diminished product if it's just the documents that could be seen by everybody, right? And so we want to make it so it's the documents that can be seen by me, my work group, my role, my function, my geography, however those things overlay. And so the same priorities exist and the same access exists across those available repositories. Pretty cool. There's you talk about, hey, there's some thought process, but the other piece is just how automated the process is. Meaning, it's not there's no additional steps. I have to upload this into Ada or into the system. There's no tagging. And the other thing is when you're tagging or other people are tagging, they're tagging documents. But Ada is busy and Lucy is busy tagging at the sub-document level. And again, the PowerPoint deck, 100 slides, think about it, it's tagged 100 different ways. That's how we find answers. And there's no way of manually doing that in any world, which is hard to fathom. I think we're going to jump into some questions and try to again, we encourage people to ask questions. If we don't get to them here, we'll try to figure out how to get you answers. So here's a question. Was there a formal change strategy developed for the rollout? So
for sure, for the for the HR pilot, yes, there was. We worked through, and Lucy were really helpful with this because they have playbooks on how they've done it in other companies and actually within PepsiCo as well. For our pilot, it was a simplified rollout because we wanted to show people what it does, and then we're really testing, will they see the value on it, and will they actually go and use it? That's part of the pilot results that we're eagerly awaiting. But for sure, if you're launching this on a larger scale, then the detail that we've thought about, which was a lot, is a lot of work. It's we've been thinking about this for many months on the comms plan, the messaging we're going to send out and things like that. But if the bigger the scale, the more thought you have to put into it in terms of the change strategy. But it's not like something that you're going to be thumping people over the head with. This is something that will actually help them, and it's more making sure that they see the value in it, and they get the message that this can help you, this can make your life easier. And as soon as they do, you see people going in multiple times a week asking questions. So that I guess that's the bit, and the work up front, and I'm going to echo what Dan said there. It was amazing how easy it was. So we were checking folders in SharePoint and looking at the documents and going, is this okay to share? Yeah, that's probably okay. Yeah, there's everything in here. And that it was that level of checking. It wasn't reading every single slide of every single deck, because you know roughly what's in them from the title, and you know your audience, you know who you're going to share it with, because you've locked that down using the permissions. And then Ada just, I sent a message to our customer success manager, Luke. He's probably listening. He's a fantastic guy. And he just did it. He pulled it all in and made it really, really easy.
It's funny you say that because we were talking to somebody who had a different system, and they were all excited after 6 months to have 10,000 documents in the system, and we're just kind of chuckling because that's overnight.
Yeah.
We're processing across all clients at this pace right now, just shy of 1 million documents every night, and with changes, adds, and deletes, and again they're excited that they got 10,000 in 6 months.
And there's a good point here around security. Just going back to that question, because we're saying pull it into Lucy. The documents don't leave. They're still all on PepsiCo servers. They haven't gone anywhere. So that's another layer of security there.
Great point. I appreciate you bringing it up because it is so different. The documents remain on SharePoint or in whatever system they were in. Lucy's just creating, or ADIC has this index of metadata that allows her to go get the document, go get that answer, and provide it, as opposed to duplicating all of the data, all the storage, and uploading into that system. So it's a pretty big thing. Here's another question. This is from Phil. I should say Phil from Pawtucket. I don't know where he's from. I have PepsiCo's HR or recruitment teams use Lucy, and if so, how?
Yeah. So this is where we're at. This is who the audience for the pilot is. So for the HR pilot, so it is the learning and development teams, the recruitment teams, talent acquisition as we call them in PepsiCo, employee engagement. So what we've been talking about there, it's that's how we've been using it in HR, and hopefully then we can, well, depending on the results of the pilot, of course, we look to expand globally, because I think it steps up a level when you can suddenly discover other sectors. So I can suddenly discover things that the guys in LATAM are doing, and they're really talented guys, and I'd love to see what their work is, how they're going about their work.
Awesome. Another question: do you have any goals for you to meet against the test group, and were there metrics set up? And again, what happens if you don't meet that goal? We're going to meet that goal. What are you talking about?
Dan, I'm a scientist at heart. Of course, there's metrics. Yeah, no. Yeah. So we've got some really useful benchmarks, because we can look at what's happening in commercial, we can look at what's happening in insights, and we can benchmark against there. We've also got other knowledge repositories which that are in different parts of the business as well, and we can see the usage rates of there, so we can make comparisons. So this is an established system. How does it compare against that? And then also one of the things, we've got to be a bit human-centric with this as well. We've got to go out to our group afterwards and say, what do we think? I believe in just trusting people to be honest with me. And if they come back and they say, I don't think it's going to happen, but if they come back to me and they say, look, we don't see the value in this, then that's a conversation. But so it's like with any pilot, this is why we do the pilots, because we want to find out, okay, it looks great, it sounds great, but does it work in our environment? We've seen it work. It works brilliantly in commercial. It works brilliantly in insights. Does it work in HR? Let's find out.
Great. There's a couple of questions. I think we mostly covered it, but I just want to give you an opportunity. So you mentioned multiple SharePoints in your pilot. How much work did you or your team have to do to getting all that information into ADA before launching the pilot? I think that's what,
That's where your network.
Try to make it easy, right?
Yeah. That's where your networking skills come out. So I identified, it's the talent team. So the talent team, and that, we talked about who they are: employee engagement, talent acquisition, talent management, learning and development, total rewards. We tried to find people in those areas. We then we enlisted people from other sectors, from other business units within Europe, and said, who do you know that can help us with this? So it was a bit of a networking exercise to discover all those SharePoints. And yeah, that took a bit of time, which just goes back to, what we found with the pre-survey. Finding just that a SharePoint site exists, let alone what's on it, can be a challenge.
Well, great. I think we should probably close here to ensure we meet our time constraints and respect everyone's time. Tom, I really appreciate this whole process with you in adopting ADA in HR, but also the process of putting this together. It's been wonderful to get to know you at a different level. And I think everybody, I want to thank you, PepsiCo, and all involved for helping us pull off this session. Again, the session will be made available, I think, in 24 hours, where you can watch again. If you have any questions, there's some mechanisms you can. And the last question, which I didn't answer, is will we see a demo today? The answer is no, because we haven't. But if you want to look at lucy.ai/interview, we'd be happy to set up an opportunity and show anybody what we're talking about. So any final words from you, Tom?
Just, thank you. I've really enjoyed having the chat today. Thanks for everyone's contributions and sending in the great questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. We'll try and remedy that if we can. But yeah, thanks for watching.